Hi, welcome to the Social Chase. I'm here today with our new co-host Sarah and our special guest Beau Doherty. I'm so excited. We have Beau here from Special Olympics. He's the president of the Connecticut chapter, and he's the godfather of unified sports. So Sarah, I'm so glad you're here. And unfortunately, Chase is who's not feeling well, so he's going to be part of our crew today. So I'm so glad you came through for me and became one of our hosts.
Thank you for having me, Helen.
So Sarah, tell us a little about before we talk to Beau. Tell us about yourself in terms of what your part is in with Special Olympics.
Well, during last summer, I was part of the Waterbury PAL Chiefs for Special Olympics. My brother, Sean, who was a Bobcat for the team, and my father was a coach for the Bobcats. So softball has been in our family for a while now.
Great. So Beau, I'm just so excited. I'm probably flustered right now that you're here on this show with us, and it's so special to us. Can you tell us about Special Olympics and what it means to you and how you started with it?
Well, I came into it in a really different way. My degree was actually in wildlife management and fisheries. So what happened is that during my junior year of college, I was drafted big time by the head of recreation at Doverty State School to run for the first time ever an outdoor recreation program for intellectually disabled people at Doverty State School in Taunton. And when I got in there, they said, and by the way, you're in charge of Special Olympics. So to make a long story short, I got hired when I got out of college to be in recreation, and the state office of Special Olympics came after me because, I was actually coaching athletes in those days. Those days were a little bit different because it was more of like a fun day in the sun. It wasn't as serious, but I was doing things a little bit more serious, and so the state office, felt, well, who's this guy? Maybe he can help us, and then I ended up getting drafted by them.
Fantastic.
Nice. So when and why did you come up with the idea of unified sports in Massachusetts?
Well, what happened is that when I was a young kid in Dayton, Massachusetts, in 8th grade, my parents moved to Minnesota, so I had to move. So here's a young kid with a Southern New England accent. You go to Minnesota, monstrous high schools, Swedes, Norwegians, and I played sports. And luckily I did, because that being on a team is really what helped me get accepted. Had I not done that, I think things would have been very different. But once I got on a team, things really turned around in terms of my self-confidence. I learned the whole friendship thing. So that was always planted within me about being this kid with an accent going to a place that was very different in its culture. And when I started working at Dever, the people that I worked with I found to be great. But when I brought them into the community, a lot of people would run away pretty much, They were not as accepting to people with disabilities at that point in time. And because I was so entrenched with Special Olympics, eventually I went to Eunice Kennedy Shriver and said, listen, we need to seriously think about trying to do a program that's not segregated. I mean, what you're doing is unbelievable, and it's really changed the world. But if we really want to change this for the better, I think we need to seriously consider inclusion. So I got her to actually come up with a scenario where she would research 8 different states where people were doing, we called it integrated sports in the beginning. And they sent in researchers, and what did the researchers find out? Researchers found out that the people that were on these teams that were disabled and non-disabled were becoming closer, were becoming friendlier. They found through the research the kids without disabilities were really going from some negative feelings about people with disabilities to more positive ones. So it really started to change the way that people felt about our athletes, and it took a long time. It took us till 1989. I went to her in 83. The first time. 84, we started doing the research, and until 1989 is when she told everybody at a big world conference, we're going to do unified sports, and I give you my blessing to do that. So that was the beginnings. It was a long time, but you know, a lot of people right now are very thankful that she changed the way things, you know, happened within Special Olympics.
Oh, that's very sweet.
So I know I've been very thankful for you because I've coached Special Olympics Unified for 11 years. And even without research, I see the differences it has with the neurotypical and the kids with special needs and how passionate they are on both sides. I truly see the benefits of it. And it's a beautiful, wonderful program. And we're so grateful for you for even coming up with that concept because it makes such a difference for everybody all around. So I just want to thank you with that as well.
No, I appreciate that, Helen. Thank you.
And also, anyone who's in these teams gives people without special needs a broader horizon. Like, yes, I've read about it, I've read the research, I've done a topic on it, but they don't know there's different forms of it. Like with autism, there's a whole different spectrum. There's some people who are on the lower side of the spectrum who process the world differently than people who are on the higher side of the spectrum who process the world very differently. It all depends, and with unified sports, getting people with special needs and people without working together, becoming a team, that just melts my heart right then and there.
Well, I think, you know, and I appreciate that. I think it makes a ton of sense to me. I think one of the great things that we do have is the large amount of sports, which, you know, for some people, certain sports are more suitable, including the different ability divisions, which also are within Unified. So, right. You know, somebody was, let's say, severe challenge. I've gone to Division 5 at our Unified high school events. In Division 5, it's kids who are in wheelchairs, who are profoundly disabled, right. And the people that are helping them, you know, we have the modified height of the basket, right? And the people that are helping them is the captain of the football team,
right.
The captain of the field hockey team. All the people that are accepted within the school community are out there with these athletes. And so one thing that I always knew this, but I think it took a while for Mrs. Shriver to figure it out, because she had to see it. And she had to think about herself with her sister Rosemary, right. Because later in life with Mrs. Shriver, she started talking about her days with her sister, who was intellectually disabled, Rosemary Kennedy, and they would go and they would sail together as a team, and they would win when she was a kid. Rosemary was a pretty good athlete, and so was Eunice. And John Kennedy, the president, and Joe Kennedy Jr. used to lose. And so when they'd go up to the father, and they'd have to explain, well, we lost and they won. And the way Eunice Shriver described it wasn't enjoyable, I don't think, for John Kennedy or Joe Jr. So that whole scenario brings us to the point where everybody really benefits. You know, it's not just the athletes. I mean, the athletes right. benefit, but a lot of our kids who are partners on teams, they're changing their majors all the time to special education. A lot of them now are in the corporate world, because we've been doing this in Connecticut since '91 in the schools. Okay. I mean, the kid who's the starting center fielder of the Los Angeles Dodgers, you know, that kid was a partner on a Unified team.
Oh, nice.
Oh, yeah. So A.J. Pollock. So we're starting to see a bunch of kids who started doing this early, who are now getting into bigger jobs, and you know what that means.
That's right.
That means they're going to be, you know, when it comes to, are we going to hire people with disabilities to be in the workforce? Right. They're the ones who are going to be a lot more accepting than the old guard that I worked with in my early years.
That's very true.
Oh yeah, the world is changing. So you expanded on how much it has grown, and what's NSPN's role in all of this?
Well, ESPN started early on. So let's say when we started doing the school unified programs in Connecticut was '91. So ESPN started around about 8 years into it. They started sending volunteer groups to actually help run the tournaments. And so they really loved it. And as things progressed with ESPN and Special Olympics International, it came a point where they were going to determine what were they going to actually do with Special Olympics. And they were like, well, I'll tell you what we want to do. we want to do unified sports. So they've thrown in like millions of dollars, and I've seen where that money goes. You know, it goes to China, it goes to Kenya, it goes to India. India is an example they gave a big grant to. India has 110,000 people doing unified cricket as a result of that money that they gave. 110,000 people, and that's not a bunch of baloney. So what ESPN has done is they've grown it by giving grants to different parts of the world, but at the same time, they also took on all the World Games coverage and all the United States Games coverage. And so what they do is they also focus in on messages of inclusion and unified versus what the World Games used to be kind of delivering in the old days. So ESPN has really helped change, I think, a lot of the landscape in Special Olympics because so many people watch it that really weren't fans of Special Olympics. And that's kind of changed their mind about us, and we've gotten a lot of volunteers through that coverage.
Can you explain a little bit to me about the type of people who are on these teams?
Yeah, so I would say that in order to be in Special Olympics, you pretty much, it used to be an IQ of 70 or below. Quite frankly, I think if you go outside of the United States, it's really 80 and below if you really want to be black and white about it. But it also, there's a caveat about people being able to be independent by themselves. So as a result of that, you see a lot of other groups getting involved. You'll see folks with autism who are join the ranks, some of which are partners, some of which are the athletes on teams. So it's really broadened the landscape where we're able to bring in more people within the developmental disability group. But it would not be like the appropriate thing for somebody, I think, with cerebral palsy, who has high intelligence, to be labeled, perhaps somebody who, who's intellectually disabled when they're not.
Right.
So sometimes you'll get people who have that kind of a disability who, quite frankly, are like the announcers. We have one right now. We have an announcer at the softball game that you participated in. There was one particular guy there that really helped out. He was Mitchell College, and he was a big announcer. So we do have a lot of different things within our ranks for people to do, no matter who they are, quite frankly.
So if you could explain the partnership with the Connecticut Interscholastic Schools and Unified Sports in Schools and how that really works.
Well, around 91, I had a meeting with Mike Savage, who was the president of CIAC. They do all interscholastic athletic sports. And he wanted to do unified sports. And we did. We went down that road, and I got to give him a lot of credit, because within that sphere of and I know people who run different organizations around the United States that were in his shoes. He was way ahead of the time. He was way ahead. He wanted to help people with disabilities. But he wanted to do it in a very inclusionary way. And of course, he went to the right guy with me and Peter Wheeler at the time, who was our CEO, and Tim Shriver, who's now the chairman of Special Olympics, who happened to be the chairman of the board. So all the things worked well together, and we started down this road where right now I've got 6 staff who work at CIAC, who just do unified sports in the schools. We have 95% of all the high schools. We've got 87 middle schools. We've got 72 elementary schools, and we've got 32 schools that do young athletes, 3 to 7-year-old program. In this state, and what happened is that the international office has taken the model that we created here, which is both entities working together, because there's tremendous strength that they have that we don't have, and stuff that we have that they don't have. And that's what they're doing. They're in 33 other states right now.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, as a result of that. So, and I know that this is crazy stuff, but the Crown Prince out in Abu Dhabi, the United Arab Emirates, just gave $25 million to promote what we're doing here over in Europe.
Wow.
Wow.
and the Middle East.
Wow.
So that he's become a big inclusion guy, and he likes what we're doing in the schools, and that's what they're going to start doing over there.
Hey, maybe there'll be unified sports in England or Ireland.
Well, here's the great news. It's actually in 180 countries right now, and there's 1.8 million people doing unified sports, if you can believe it or not. We all have to do a census every year, so I have to send in our numbers. We have to prove what our numbers are of people that we serve here. Every state has to do that. Every country has to do that. And so very specifically, they ask how many people are in unified sports. And when we started out, we started at 500,000 people around the world in 2010. And right now, you got 1.8 million people doing unified. It's crazy, huh?
That's amazing.
That's awesome.
Touch 1.8 million people. I mean, that's like a dream come true for me. That's beautiful.
And there's some like Africa pretty much does unified.
That's fantastic.
That is awesome. Now, can you explain to me what a Unified Champion Banner School is?
Yeah, it's a national recognition program that the Special Olympics Incorporated created. And it's really hard to get a banner. I don't know if you ever walked into a school, but sometimes you see these banners when you became your first place for the conference championship in basketball. So they developed this situation where a school has to do three major things. They have to have a club, which is inclusive. It has to be recognized by the school. It has to have people with and without disabilities on it. People with disabilities get to be officers in it. You have to do 2 times a year a whole-scale diversity program for the entire school. And you also have to have at least 3 different unified sports during the course of the year, 10 weeks of training, culminating competition. If you have all of that, you get that banner. But the reason behind it isn't to make people check off boxes. It's we have everybody who does unified sports right now in the United States is researched by University of Massachusetts every single year, and they look at what is really happening. And when you do all those 3 things, the needle goes in this direction in terms of positive outcomes regarding diversity, acceptance, inclusion, and people's sensitivities to others and how they treat other people. So that's why it's a full court press. And we have 62 schools who have gotten national recognition. The next to us is South Carolina with 17. So a small state, but some of these schools here are doing some unbelievable work, and it's not easy, by the way.
And I like the fact you said it's not a checkbox, because we have a lot of that going on. And that's just so key that you take this very seriously, and people really deserve to receive this banner, and all the differences they're making with people's lives is not just a checkbox, it's actual what they're doing. So I think that's fantastic work.
Awesome. Now, can adults play unified sports?
Yeah, they can, but I'll tell you, one of the biggest weaknesses in unified sports around the world is that predominantly people are really throwing it out as for youth. So there's very little adult unified. We started with the adults. So we have a ton of people at our games doing unified, but if you go to another state, you go to another country, you're only going to see young kids. And the problem, but it's a problem because you've got to have that shift. What are people going to do if all you're doing, if you're in Southern California and you're Los Angeles and you get all this unified stuff going on in the schools and the kids graduate, where are they going to go?
Where are they going to go?
Yeah, what they're going to do.
And if their only option is to do a traditional, segregated, Special Olympics program, which, in some cases, believe me, there's a lot of great things about the traditional program, believe me. But if that's all you've got, then that person's not going to be involved. Most of the parents are going to go, my kid's been doing an inclusive experience for 8 years of their life, and now they're not going to do that. So there is a problem within our ranks internationally about how are we going to get this going a little bit more on the adult side.
Which it is a serious thing, because even we have that issue with people with special needs that after 21 they graduate, then what's for them? And there's there's not many programs for them, but there's Special Olympics, and so Special Olympics there's no age limit on Special Olympics. So that's one of the beauties. And if you don't have to really be a big person that's into sports, there's so many different activities with Special Olympics you could do as unified. I mean bocce. You have bocce now, right?
Croquet, sailing.
Sailing. I mean, there's so many different sports, and I really encourage others to definitely go on the soct.org site as well as Special Olympics, and you can see all the different activities that they have. And if you think of something, contact Special Olympics and see if you'll be willing to try something different. I think that I've seen things change over the years as new sports pop up. So I just think it's such a wonderful program, and everything is great, and the amount of volunteers that are involved, the different companies that are there involved, and it
sponsors
just
like
sponsors
WWE every year.
Right. Oh, the kids love WWE.
Oh, they love it.
And with Warrior Pal, our kids are from age 8 to 25. And so we have a big range. And boy, they all love WWE. And they just love that. And it's just those relationships that Special Olympics and you have brought, and just the awareness is just, I keep saying the same thing, but I really mean it.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, really, you should get involved in some way. Even if you don't want to do a sport, volunteer.
Exactly.
Be part of volunteering.
Coach a team if you don't want to volunteer, or if you don't want to be a partner. Coach them. Teach them, like if you play basketball, teach them how to play and create a team. Or if you play baseball or softball or cricket or sailing, teach them how to do it, so that way they have new experiences that, oh, I can do this now, let's see what else is there.
And we also have a lot of events, so if people want to volunteer, more, they're organization gurus, they're really into that. There's so many facets to running games that there's plenty of niches there. And, and some people who, will do a one-day deal can be an official, especially if they, proficient in the sport.
Right.
They can come out and officiate for a day. So there's a lot of opportunity.
And I'm a volunteer photographer, so they have volunteer photographers as well. I coach and do photography, but I'm there, so I take photographs.
And she's a wonderful photographer.
Oh, she is.
So, but it's just different things. So never think that, oh, there's nothing there for me. You don't know until you ask. Okay, so definitely ask, call, and
look online.
And they have a Facebook page as well. But I'm just really excited again that Beau is here with us. Tell us about how he started Unified Sports and why he is really considered the godfather of Unified Sports for Special Olympics, because that is a true title. I read that, I'm like, you know what? That is so true. But we really appreciate your dedication. I see him at every game. So he's not just pushing papers and filling out forms.
No,
he's there.
He's cheering on the athletes that are there. He's trying to make every single field, no matter where it is. It shows the dedication you have for them.
Well, it's pretty easy. I think the two of you know better than anybody. You're talking about dedication. I get paid for what I do. You do not. However, you have passion, and what I get a lot from, as you can probably figure out, it's not just the athletes. I get a lot from the volunteers as well. It's sometimes, and I get a little bit of a beating sometimes from people on this, but I think Special Olympics is really for everybody.
Yes.
You know what I mean? I think
so.
I think all parties really benefit if you really look at it.
think so.
There's something about helping other people in general that helps anybody. I don't care if it's at a soup kitchen. I don't care if it's working with us. I don't care if it's going to the children's hospital. There's something about that that's good. And some people struggle to do any one of those things, and yet when they do, they feel a lot better. And then our athletes certainly just love being with each other, with partners on teams, to be able to go to games, to do overnight stuff, to sail, to play golf, right? To play croquet at Ocean House in Rhode Island and Watch Hill next to Taylor Swift's house. So, there's a lot of opportunity, which brings about great joy for everybody, I think, involved.
Right. And one misconception I would like to talk about a little bit is that, because I hear this when I'm coaching, is that they do care. They are competitive.
Oh,
The athletes are competitive and they do want to win.
Yes,
so people are
I
like, oh,
can testify.
yes, it's for fun, but they are very competitive. I remember the first time because Chase is like very quiet, I never knew he was competitive, and he did the race and he came in second place, and we were at the podium, and it was like first, second, third, and he's in second place, and he put his foot on top of the first place. I was like, he does care.
He does.
I was like, so Special Olympics showed that to me, that this kid's competitive inside. He's quiet, but he's competitive. Yeah. So thank you so much, Beau.
Oh, no
Yeah.
problem. It's great. It's been a good career up to now. It's been, knock on wood.
Yeah.
It's been a long time, I'll tell you, but it's been good.
So we want to thank you so much for being with us today. And Sarah, thank you so much for being a co-host. We hope you come
you're
back
welcome.
again.
I will
You did a great job.
definitely
and
come back.
So I'll have contact information at the end of this show, so you could go ahead and contact Special Olympics and get involved.
And please
Thank you.
go online and look up what positions there are. There are many volunteers, coaching opportunities out there.
Right, so coaching is easy. I happened to be at the game and I saw there weren't coaches, so I volunteered.
Same with my father.
Was I really good at the game?
No.
But we do win golds, just so you know.
Not that you're competitive.
Yes, I'm competitive.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's all fun and the kids love it. And I just to see the pure joy of their faces, it's just priceless. I can't explain it any more than that. It's priceless.
You're speechless anytime a Special Olympic athlete will smile.
Yes.
And they are enjoying so much of it.
Right.
It's like there's no moment greater than that.
Right. It's not. So thank you again so much for coming today, Beau.
Oh no, it's been great to come here, and a great job, by the way, Sarah.
Thank you.
You know, and Helen, certainly. I know you had to kind of jump into
Yeah.
this too, so thank you very much.
So thank you again for joining us today.
People are always watching me. Sometimes they say things about me. I can't always hear what they say, but sometimes I can, and that makes me feel great.
The Special Olympics Unified Sports Program. It's about sports and teamwork. But even more important, it's about shattering the stereotypes of people with intellectual disabilities. It's a way to inspire inclusion and respect for all people, both on and off the playing field. When we play unified, we live unified.